This is Court Storming with your host, Perry Sook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Court Storming, episode 9. And my goodness, what a difference a week makes. Sitting here last week, I was upset. I was hitting the panic button. I wasn't jumping ship, but there was certainly panic because the bottom end of that Providence game looked like a team that was going to end up on the bubble, if not out of the tournament, if they continued to play and close games like that. And then this week happens. 2 Quad 1 road wins, up to 18 in KenPom, 26 in the net, and 4-1 in Big East play. You absolutely have to love it. And joining me now, a very special guest who was at both games. We have the NYPost, Zach Braziller. So, Zach, when I was watching this Butler game, they were down 7 in the first half, and I was like, uh-oh, here we go again. Is this team going to show any resolve? And then they battle back, and then you have the big 3 to end the half, and then they don't look back ever since that point. Literally, for the rest of that game and through the entire Creighton game, what did you see when you were looking and seeing this? What worked for you in that Butler game?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it were the big lineups. You know, they start Mitchell, Ejiofor, and Hopkins. They played some Zuby with Prey. You know, they put size on the Butler guard. Biz Jack, who's a really good shooter, really shut him down in the second half. I mean, to me, that game, I wrote it at the time, they kind of found their identity, you know, which is big, versatile lineup. You know, you have all 4 of your forwards can guard on the perimeter, can switch onto guards. And, you know, they really, that lineup really dominated the final 25 minutes or so of that game. Hopkins had a great second half after being in foul trouble in the first half. Zuby was really good. Ruben Prey played really well. They don't really necessarily have difference-making guards. I mean, that's right now, that's what it is. I think Ian Jackson has a chance to be that as we get later in the year and he improves more. And, you know, when Oziah Sellers is making shots, he's that. But for the most part, they don't have that. But you know what they do have? They have difference makers up front. And so why not just play more of them together? And this week we really saw more of that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely loved it. I think having, you know, Ruben and Zuby on the court at the same time is so advantageous. And Zuby has taken another step in his decision-making because even when he's getting doubled, even when he's not stuffing the stat sheet, he is making the right pass every single time, it seems like. You mentioned it, Hopkins, 15 of his 17 in the second half, shooting 60% there. Just kind of ridiculous. And then the turnovers, which I love because only 5 turnovers and then getting 21 turnovers off the Bulldogs, leading to 27 points. It really was more complete, and I like the word that used identity because it does seem like, hey, this is what we can do. This is what we are capable of with this talent, with these bigs, getting Sellers, and in that, we also have Lefteris Liotopoulus coming in, you know, scoring 10 in that game, and then obviously scoring a little more, which we'll get to later. And I love that. Well, here, before I go in, because I have a million things I want to say about Lefty and Ruben. But before I do that, let's take a quick listen to what Pitino had to say after that game, and Bryce Hopkins as well, about kind of bouncing back and showing that they wanted to have some grit.
We know why we lost that game the other day. We didn't rebound the ball, and we made some really bad plays, and it ended up in our demise. So when it got to the 12-minute mark, I said, okay, are we going to learn from that? When we come back at the 8-minute mark, when we come back at the 4-minute mark, and we did. We learned from it and grew as a basketball team.
It wasn't a good feeling for all of us in the room. So, you know, we came back the next day, we tried to wash it out, and we tried to just get better in the areas that we made mistakes in the game. And I feel like tonight we did a great job. Like Coach said, it was a team effort. Everybody that came off the bench gave us a lift, and, you know, it was a great team win, and, you know, it's going to be the start to something good.
I like both of those sound bites because it shows that, hey, Providence was an exception. While you can kind of write off some of the other ones to losing to good teams or losing to okay teams when they're having their great night, you know, Providence was unacceptable and we felt terrible about it. And this can now be the start of something good. Now, that being said, it was Butler. This is not, you know, a team vying for 1 or 2 or even 3 in the Big East. But But then they go to Omaha, a place where this team has had no success whatsoever, pretty much ever. I mean, only one ever win before this game in Omaha. And my goodness, it is the most wire-to-wire complete game that I think I have seen from this team. When you talked about the identity and leaning into the bigs, did you see them use that more in the game against Creighton?
Probably not quite as much, just because Mitchell got in foul trouble, so only played 19 minutes, and we didn't see a ton of Ruben and Zuby together. But they did some. I mean, Mitchell, even in his 19 minutes, was really good. 6 points, I believe it was 6, 8, and 3. I thought Mitchell had an underratedly really good week. I thought Zuby was awesome against Creighton. He only scored 12 points, but he had 5 assists. I think like 4 of them led to threes. Creighton really couldn't guard him, and so he was smart to not force it. He would wait for the double teams, and then he'd find the open guy, and Sellers made threes, Liotopoulus made threes, Ian made threes, Darling made threes. Right now they're shooting 41% in league play, and it doesn't feel like it's unsustainable because basically everyone in this league can't handle them down low. You saw it against Butler and Creighton and Georgetown too, where these teams have to double team St. John's on the post, and it leads to open shots, and they have good shooters. They're now over 36% from 3 on the season, whether it's Sellers, Lefty, Ian, Darling shot well. Satin could obviously shoot. Bryce has made some threes. So teams it's gonna be a pick your poison. You're gonna let Zuby and Hopkins and Mitchell get theirs, or are you gonna say, all right, beat us from deep? And they've done that now in most of the league games.
Yeah, no,
outside Providence, obviously.
Sure. Well, and that's I want to talk about the Providence game because I think there is something uniquely bad about how that ended that kind of spurred this team to victory. But I echo what you said. I think Mitchell's week was underrated because it wasn't the flashy stat week, but just affecting the floor and the athleticism and the pace that he really helps this team play with. Because when they're playing with pace, when they're doing that, it tends to be better. And shooters are making shots now. We've talked about on this show, the up and down roller coaster of Sellers. This was an up week for the most part. 16 points, 6 of 11 from the floor, 54.5% in that game against Creighton. And then I want to talk about Lefty because all summer I was hearing that Lefty was the best three-point shooter on the team. Not Sellers, not the guy they paid all this crazy money to go get. And that it was close, but that Lefty was the sharpshooter. And we know that Rick, has some problems with his defense, and that's why maybe he doesn't always, get to go as much. But my goodness, 10 points. And then second most minutes against Creighton and a team-high 17 points. Plus, Ruben, obviously a little less effective in the Creighton game, but the consistency, and Rick says it. He says, they both played European basketball. That's kind of the system that we play with. Do you think, is there something, Rick always says 8 new guys. Well, guess what? You have 4 guys returning, and one is kind of an emotional leader, in Deku from the bench as a team captain this year. But now Lefty and Ruben contributing major minutes. I mean, do you need to lean on those 4, especially in a time where you're blaming your losses on 8 new guys?
Yeah, I think there are things that Lefty does really well that Rick likes. He's got good size for a shooter, 6'4". He has a really quick release, and one issue with Sellers sometimes when he misses shots early, he kind of gets gun shy. Lefty's not going to get gun shy. He's going to get shots up. And that's something that Tino talks about a lot, is he doesn't want guys counting their misses. He doesn't care if you're open, shoot the ball. And Lefty's going to shoot the ball. And the other thing that he does, and he's not, we all know he's not, quick of foot. He's not a great on-ball defender, but he understands the defensive principles they play with. And I think he's a decent defensive rebounder for a guard. And we all know defensive rebounding has been an issue for them all year. And that's one thing about this week. I mean, they allowed 4 second chance points in 2 games. They, I believe it was they allowed, I believe it was 6 offensive rebounds in the 2 games. Like, now, Butler's a really good offensive rebounding team. They're like a top 25 in the country in offensive rebounding rate. Creighton isn't that, but so it wasn't like they're facing teams that don't rebound the ball. And I think some of that's that big lineup, obviously. But that's, I mean, when you look at their defense isn't last year, but the defense is good enough. The issue with the defense has been not getting defensive rebounds and finishing out possessions, and they did that this week.
Yeah, and what I really also liked, I complained about it to Roger last week, is it seemed to me that this defense really locked in and like gave it their 100 when the offense was clicking. It's like, oh man, we're fired up. The offense is working. So let's lock in and blow it open on defense. Well, that doesn't work when the offense is missing baskets. And so the offense did miss some baskets, and the defense still locked in. I mean, you saw them be down by 7. You saw some back and forth early in the Creighton game. You saw some trading buckets late, but they were making enough that it didn't even matter at that point. And I loved that step forward from the defense. I have a quick soundbite here from Lefty because I'm a big believer in it, and I love what you said about his release. Rick said it too, is that he's almost never not open because the release is so quick. He compared him to a quarterback, getting the snap off and throwing it so fast. So let's take a quick listen to what Lefty have to say about his, career high 17 points in Creighton.
They have been under Coach's wing, and they play for Coach, so they know what he expects from us, and they definitely help with the experience playing under him, and just giving us knowledge and stuff like that, and telling us what Coach expects of us and what the standard is. Definitely, the experience helps us for sure.
Yeah, that experience coming into play, Rick kind of wrote it off that no, these guys are good guys and they'll help. But when you're only playing an 8-man rotation and 3 of them are returning guys compared to a 12-man rotation, with less of those guys, I think it's kind of inarguable the impact that they are having. Any last quick thoughts on that before we take a quick break, Zach?
Look, I definitely think it helps. I think Ruben is a guy that, because they have so many guys up front, gets lost, but he just makes winning plays. Even Creighton, he didn't score, but he had 2 blocks. I thought he really helped change the game defensively when he came in. Creighton, first 10 minutes or so, were getting the shots they wanted. They were hitting threes, getting good looks. And then Ruben came in and it kind of muddied it up a little for them. And St. John's took control with it. They got hot from 3 and they started stringing together stops. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. Look, guys like Lefty Ruben, they were here for the great year last year, and they understand everything about what St. John's runs and what Rick wants, and it definitely helps. And I mean, look, it's not a coincidence that in probably the best week of the season so far, I'd put Vegas up there. I mean, look, they almost beat the number 3 team in the country who hasn't lost yet, and then they hammered Baylor's not a great team, but they're a decent team. So, I thought early in the year they played pretty well, considering they were playing such good opponents. But it was a really good week, and you saw bigger roles for these guys. And I'm fascinated to see how they can build on this.
I am too, and that is exactly what I want to talk about. I did want to mention I circled there was a key block from Ruben right when it was 14-12. Blocks it, goes down, Sellers makes the basket, and I was like, that could be a turning point of this entire game. And speaking of turning points, that is exactly what we are going to talk about right here when Court Storming returns.
Welcome back to Court Storming with Perry Sook.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Court Storming. It was a great week. Zach Braziller, who will be joining us shortly, said that it was maybe their best week. You could look at Vegas. But as far as a stat sheet, you get 1 quad 1 win against Baylor. Here you get 2 and take no losses on the day. So joining us now again is Zach Braziller of the NYPost. So Zach, I think this was the best week. If you want to go from a fan perspective, if you want to go from a mentality perspective, if you want to go from literally just a wins and losses perspective. I mean, it was a 2-0 week compared to a 1-2 week. And I love the way that they played. And you made a great point, especially against Iowa State. I mean, that you win that game, the whole season looks a little different. But I called both of these games must wins if this team wanted to get back to what we thought they could be at the beginning of the season, or at least even close to it. And they go out and win both. Do you think it is, what was this Providence loss? Was the fact that they lost this inexcusable game in an inexplicable way to a team you're really supposed to beat at home? I mean, is that, I love the cliched phrase, but is that the start of the championship DVD? I mean, could this be the thing that spurs this team on?
Yeah, look, you have to love the response. Let's be real. I mean, a lot of people have been calling this team soft. I didn't go there, but you've heard it from people that it was a soft team, and they didn't act like one this week. They really got off the mat and showed you some grit, showed you some backbone, showed you some toughness. Look, time will tell. We don't know, but it's fair to say that it could be. There's no question about it. I mean, Providence now is starting to look like more of an anomaly than anything else, because you played great against Georgetown. I mean, not great, but you played well against Georgetown.
Well enough, yeah.
Played well. It's a road league win that you won comfortably. Then you do the, you beat you beat Butler comfortably. You crush Creighton. You're 4-1 in the league. They should be 5-1 Tuesday. They're going to be like a 16 point favorite, something like that. So yeah, I mean, look, it could be a turning point. I think what you like the most, yes, the wins, the quad wins, all that stuff, but it was just like the way they played. It was how they guarded, how they shared the ball, the pace they played with. It looked like it looked at its best early. They had some spurts against Alabama and Iowa State where it looked good. They played complete games, which we really haven't seen, for the most part. I'd say probably 25-ish minutes against Butler, 30, 32 really good minutes against Creighton. That's that's very encouraging that they played complete basketball, both ends of the floor, not overly relying on one guy. That to me is, if you're looking for what you're happy about this week, forget the, quad one stuff. If they continue to play like this, you're not gonna have to worry about that. They're gonna have more than enough wins. That to me is, I think, if you're a St. John's fan, what makes you happiest is just how well they played.
I would agree, because this is now not when you watch the end of the Providence game, you think, oh my goodness, if this team plays like this could be a bubble team. I mean, just the way that fell off, the way you take whatever it'll end up being at the end of the year, quad 3, quad 4 loss at home. And you start to question the fabric of this team and the viability in this season. And that's not a question this week. I think undoubtedly St. John's has reasserted themselves as the second best team in the Big East. Only time will tell when we turn the page to February if they can compete to be the first best team in the Big East. Is that what you saw that you like the most? Is it the fact that they were complete? Is it the grit? Is it the improved shooting? I mean, is it Zuby's decision making? If you had to pick out one thing that this team did best this week, that is, what they did, the big lineup that you mentioned you loved. What was the thing?
I think they found their identity. We've been kind of waiting for that all year. Like, what are they? Like last year's team identity was its grit and its toughness, and they were never out of a game. I think this year's identity is they play big, they're versatile, they have 4 forwards that are all really good players, and they're going to create mismatch problems for you. And it's going to lead to open shots from their shooters, and they can play both sides of the ball with all these forwards. I think that's their identity, of these big lineups, but it's not just big lineups, it's big lineups with guys who can switch on anyone. Dylan Mitchell can guard a point guard. Bryce Hopkins can guard on the perimeter. Prey and Zuby can guard on the perimeter. And these are all guys outside of Dylan that can shoot threes. And, I think that was the best thing about this, is I think they kind of found their identity and what they can kind of ride here for the rest of the year.
I would agree. And the fact that it has unlocked Zuby in this way, I mean, as of after the Creighton game, Zuby is now the leading scorer, rebounder, assister, leading the team in blocks and steals. All those categories. This is your forward. How is he leading the team in assists? But I love it because he is just, they have to pay so much attention to him when he's on, and it's opening up these guys. And, it's a lot easier to get assists if when you dish the pass out, the guy makes the three. And Lefty was doing that at a great rate. Sellers did that. I do want to touch real quick on Sannon. We did not see a lot of him this weekend. Do you expect to see him kind of make ways back into the rotation? I mean, they paid for him. He's a good shooter when he's on. But is he kind of playing his way out of the rotation in your mind?
I think it's a little both. I think Lefty's playing his way in, and Josan playing his way out. Lefty. I think Josan's a good shooter. Lefty's a better shooter. Lefty's a really good shooter, and with the way they're going to play with all the forwards, it's going to create shots on the perimeter. And if you have someone like Lefty, who's like a dead-eye shooter, that's a big thing. And look, there's nothing wrong with some competition, maybe it's a kick in the ass.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, no, I mean, they always say the best thing.
You want to be out there more? Prove you belong to be out there.
Prove you belong to be out there.
It's like.
Exactly. Well, in the reverse of Dylan Darling. I mean, Dylan Darling was a coach's decision, did not play on Tuesday against Butler, and goes into coach's office and says, hey, I didn't play well enough in Providence. I wasn't a contributor at all. I didn't deserve it. And then comes out and plays pretty darn well against Creighton. Speaking of Lefty, because I'm all about it. I love the way he plays. If he can get the defense up, it'll be fantastic. Lefty had a great quote that I think bears listening to, so we're going to take a quick listen to that. Zach, it's that simple. Just get the guys together and say we're not going to lose anymore, right? And obviously, Dylan Darling mentioning as well what they needed to do against the Providence game. And for those reasons and for the way the lineup changes, I do think this could be a start. Now, last one on this topic. For you, what is the next time we will know if this works? Because Marquette, at home, I'm not thinking, should be one I'm sweating about. Now, granted, I didn't think Providence was either. But what is the next time that you can go, yep, they turned a corner, this team has done something new?
Yeah, like after Marquette, you go to Villanova, who's, I know they lost. I know they had the Creighton loss, but they've played pretty well. And then you have Seton Hall at the Garden. I think St. John should win both those games. If we see the same team this week in those games, I think they win. I think they're clearly the second best team. But yeah, look, if you get through those two and win those two, then then I think it's pretty clear this team has kind of turned a corner.
I would agree, especially the way, Seton's been playing this year. I even saw jokes on Twitter today, UConn being like, Seton's coming to town. Like, watch out. Here comes the season buster. And who knows? Maybe they'll shock the world. That would be interesting. Speaking of, this week really got the fans reinvested, for lack of a better word. But earlier in the week, you did a piece that I thought was fantastic about the man who is literally invested with Mike Rapoli and the fact that he was doubling down, that this was actually building, what his desire to contribute to the program. And I just wanted to give you a chance. I loved it. It was a great read. I wanted to give you a chance to expound on that.
Yeah, me and Mike have a pretty good relationship, and I kind of wanted to hear his thoughts. And, I think it's only natural to wonder someone who puts a lot of money into it and maybe the results weren't there, how they feel about that. That's, I kind of always wonder about that in football too, if people putting a ton of money into it and what happens if the results don't match. And I just found it interesting. Like he said it's not going to change, if this year doesn't go. He thought this team would be fine. And then they followed up with 2 wins, but I thought it was pretty interesting that he said, like, it's not going to change how I feel about how I want to go about things at all. Like, he was talked big about, like, the non-conference schedule and how this is a different St. John's with these teams they've played, and thinks it was going to really help them in the long run. And, maybe it has already, with this big week. But no, I was, I think, a little surprised at how bullish he was on not only this team, but also his plan moving forward.
Yeah, well, and I love it. And I love the thought to even think about it because, the only way to measure ROI is championships. And when the team starts out on the rocky road. But I liked it. And it reminded me that, hey, last year at this point, St. John's had one quad one win. And I know we don't have to worry about quad ones, if St. John's takes care of business and plays on like that. But they just got 2 in a week. And this team could be just fine. Coach even says it at some point in the presser after Creighton. This team is not all that different than last year's team at this point. Now, he wishes they had more wins, but they're not that different. And to really kind of take a second and take a breath after pressing the panic button last week, I thought that was great. And I thought the reassurance from Rapoli was a good reminder of that, and a good reminder of the fickleness of the sport, and an excellent article by you. Everyone, go check it out. Go read it. It was in the Post this week.
Appreciate that, Her.
It was fantastic. As I was saying, Coach did have some nice and wonderful things to say about his team, and the fact that his confidence has also not wavered at all. And so let's go ahead and close on a nice reminder to keep it positive from Coach Rick Pitino. And if he does know what they're all about and what we just saw this week is what they're all about, my goodness, will the bandwagon be getting crowded for St. John's Red Storm down the stretch. Zach, thank you so much for joining me here. An absolute pleasure to talk to you. And again, everyone, go read his article. Great stuff, and look forward to seeing you this week.
All right, Perry, have a good one. My pleasure as always.
And thank you all, as always, for tuning in to this episode of Court Storming. We will see you back here after a game against Marquette on Tuesday at the Garden and a road test in Philadelphia against Villanova. And you can catch it all right back here on Court Storming.